Are you ready for the grand finale? Evan Lefavor's Child's Play. A lot of people have asked me, Evan, what would you do if you were hired to write a remake for Child's Play? What would you do if you were working for MGM and they wanted you to come up with a Child's Play remake? Well, you're about to find out exactly that. Are you ready for Child's Play, Evan Lefavor style? Oh, wait. So Evan Lefavor's Child's Play opens up with this little boy, and he's in his house, and it's his birthday, and it's this really creepy vibe. So this dude comes up to this little boy, and he leans down, and he's like, "Hi, Chucky. I'm your Uncle Charles. Do you know why you and I have the same name?" And little Chucky goes like this. And then Uncle Charles goes, "It's because today is a very special day. I remember on my 6th birthday, it was a very special day for me too. Because my real name is Dambala, and we will live forever." And then it cuts to this weird scene where they lead the little boy over to this chair, and Uncle Charles and these other family members are standing around, and they start doing this weird voodoo shit and doing these chants, and their eyes are rolling in the back of their heads, and they bring out this chicken and they slice the chicken's neck, and they're like hanging the chicken upside down, and blood's dripping out of the chicken, and the little boy Chucky is like screaming and he's scared. And then Uncle Charles comes up and he's got all this weird voodoo stuff on, and he's and people are blowing smoke and all this stuff, and he goes up and he cuts his hand open, and he puts his bleeding hand on the forehead of the kid, and he starts going, "Ate tui tembela, give me the power, I beg of you. Leve mesea de vashailo sakuzinte me quade mort." And then, boom, this big lightning blast comes out and hits the house. Then it cuts to 30 years later. And we see little Andy Barkley, who lives with his mom, Karen. And Andy Barkley is the biggest fan. It's about to be his 6th birthday, and he is the biggest fan of Play Pals. That's right. There's a show on TV called Play Pals, and these Play Pals are these little dudes with overalls and striped shirt and little sneakers, just like the good guy dolls, right? Except these guys, they have their own advanced toy. The Play Pal is coming to the market as a new toy. It's an advanced robotic AI super toy. All right, but we're not talking about what they did in the Child's Play remake of 2019, where it can control all your devices and it does all this smartphone shit. No, it's not like that. All right, this is just a toy that is eerily lifelike. These Play Pals toys, they talk on their own. They move their face around. They look real. And so I want the doll to be very creepy to begin with. It's going to look like classic Chucky, but it's going to look even creepier, even more lifelike, even more eerie. Okay, but it's going to have that classic Chucky look. But these are not the good guys. These are the Play Pals. And so the Play Pals, Andy wants one, and he's so fucking bad. And so he's watching Play Pals on TV, and they show the commercial. It's about to be his birthday, and he runs in to bring his mom breakfast in bed, and he's like, "I really want a Play Pal for my birthday." And he's like, "I can't afford it." And he's like, "Can I ask Daddy? Why can't Dad give me one?" She's like, "That's a good question. Why don't you ask him?" So immediately, people watching Evan Lefavor's Child's Play, they're gonna have their expectations subverted. They've seen the original, they've seen the remake, but now I'm going to play with their expectations by subverting them whenever I get the chance to do it correctly. So the first subversion of expectations is that, hey, you find out that Andy's dad is still alive, and Andy's dad is divorced from Karen. So you've got Andy's dad, and he's separated from Karen and Andy, so Andy goes over and visits his dad on the weekends. All right. But both his mom and dad are struggling financially, and neither of them can afford to get him one of these nearly $1,000 dolls. So it's a big conundrum. So Karen works at Good Guys Toys. That's right, Good Guys Toys. And they are going to start selling the Play Pal. In just a couple days, they are going to sell the Play Pal. That's right, it's going to be the big launch of the Play Pal. So Karen works with a girl named Nancy at the toy store. We see her interact with Karen, and Nancy leaves, and she is attacked by Charles Lee Ray, who kidnaps her. She's kidnapped by Charles Lee Ray. She wakes up, and she is being part of a voodoo ritual. And we've got Charles Lee Ray there, and he's got his classic voodoo knife, the Damballa voodoo knife, and he starts asking them. He says, "What do you know about Karen Barkley? What do you know about her son Andy?" And he starts asking her all these questions, and she's not telling him shit. So he starts torturing her, and he kills her in this psychotic voodoo ritual. So this is a really intense scene because I want to establish Charles Lee Ray as a brutal serial killer who is psychotic and who tortures his victims and who does voodoo rituals as he's torturing and killing his victims and acts as if he's swallowing their souls and shit. All right, like he's feeding off of killing them. All right, somehow it's giving him power. So anyway, in this scene, we see what Charles Lee Ray looks like. We see him. So Karen Barkley is working the next morning at Good Guys Toys, and in comes fucking Charles Lee Ray. And he starts asking her questions. And he's like, "Oh yeah, blah, 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 blah." And he's being really fucking creepy and shit. And she's like trying to get him out of the store, kind of like, what is this dude doing in this store? And we've seen just the scene before that we've seen this dude do some really sick psychotic shit. We know that he knows who she is, and she doesn't know that. So it's a very tense scene. And then here comes Andy's dad with Andy Barkley, and they come up, and Andy's dad is bringing Andy to Karen's work so that she can go back to her house with him, with Andy. So Charles Lee Ray looks down at Andy, and he's like, "Oh, hey, little guy. Boy, you must love this toy store, huh? Oh, if only I could be 6 years old again. Hey, you want to trade places with me?" He looks down at the little kid, and Karen's like, "Hey, excuse me, but do you have any business here in the store? Because, you know." So he goes, "Okay, yeah, I just wanted to see what's going on. And are you guys, it's like, are you guys going to be having that Play Pals doll? That looks pretty cool." She's like, "Yep, we're having the grand opening tomorrow night." He's like, "Okay, cool. I'll be here." He leaves. So Andy goes home with Karen, and she gets a call from her manager and says that Nancy didn't show up to work tonight, and can she come in to stock the store for the Play Pals release the next day. So Karen has to have Andy's dad come pick up Andy again. So Andy's dad comes to pick up Andy, and he has a little confrontation with Karen. They have a little heated argument there for a second. So Karen gets to work at Good Guys Toys at night, and Griswold is there. He's about to leave, and he's just telling Karen, he goes, "So you've got to set up the entire Play Pals display. I want you to take out one of the Play Pals. I want you to remove the battery pack from his back and place him as the display model. That way, if anyone tries to steal him, they're going to have a play pal that doesn't work. And so she goes in there and she pulls she's all alone and she pulls the play pal out of the box. She's like, oh, you're just going to be a display model, huh? She's like, if only I could bring you home to my son, he would love you. So she turns him over, unzips the back of his overalls, and pulls out the play pal's battery pack out of the back of the doll, puts it back, and sets the doll up as the display model. Then, all of a sudden, Charles Lee Ray shows up at the store. And he runs up to the door and he's like, help! Help me! Help me! I'm being chased! I'm being chased! Before Karen left for work, her and Andy were watching TV and the news came on and it said the Lakeshore Strangler has killed 10 victims in the area and he is still at large and we have no idea who the Lakeshore Strangler is, but and then it shows Detective Norris, and Detective Norris in this movie is a female. That's right. She is a Hispanic female, Detective Norris, in this movie. And the reporters are coming up to ask her, who is the Lakeshore Strangler? Who is the Lakeshore Strangler? And she's like, get out of my face, get out of my face. And so that night, Karen puts the Play Pals doll up on to the display. And all of a sudden, banging on the door comes Charles Lee Ray. And he's like, help! Help! I'm being chased! The Lakeshore Strangler is out here! The Lakeshore Strangler is out here! He's gonna kill me! Help! Help! And so she pushes this button underneath the desk, this emergency button. And she goes and she opens up the gate. And here he comes running in. She's like, thank God. Thank God. The Lakeshore Strangler was out there. She's like, where? Where is he? He's like, he's in here. He's in here with you. And he grabs her. He throws her down. And he's like, about to kill her. And he's like slashing at her. He's like, Mrs. Barkley, your little boy, Andy. And he's slicing her up, and she's getting sliced all over and trying to fight back, but he's got her down. He's got the voodoo knife out and he's cutting her, making little cuts on her. And he's like, I'm coming for your son. I'm coming for him. Me and him are gonna be very, very close. And he's slicing her. He's like, I remember when I was his age. I was scared too. But it's gonna be okay. I promise. And then he stabs her. And then it's like he's sucking the soul out of her body and his eyes roll into the back of his head and he starts dripping the blood and he's like, Mighty Damballa, give me the power I beg of you. And then the cop car rolls up and it's Detective Norris and she rolls in and she's like, boom, boom, boom. She shoots Charles. He's like, oh. There's all this blood coming out of his mouth. And he runs over and he knocks over this display case. And there's the fucking Play Pals doll. And he grabs it and he's like, and he puts his hand on the forehead of the doll. And he says, Ate tui tembela. Give me the power I beg of you. And his eyes roll in the back of his head. He starts saying the chant and then boom. The entire toy store just explodes. And Detective Norris goes flying out of the front. And she's still alive. And you're watching as shit's on fire, but the doll, the Play Pals doll, was blown from the wreckage, and you see Charles Lee Ray's dead body there. So the next scene is Andy and his father getting the news from Detective Norris that Karen was killed. Karen was killed by Charles Lee Ray, who was the notorious Lakeshore Strangler, and that they shot him and killed him in the toy store. So Andy and his dad are devastated, and now Andy has to go live with his dad full time. So we've subverted expectations here. You're not expecting Karen Barkley to die. She does. So now Andy is living with his dad, and his dad's friend is like, hey, check this out. I found one of those Play Pals dolls for really cheap at this thrift store. You gotta see it. He's like, thrift store? It just came out. How could it already be at a thrift store? He's like, do you care? Do you want to get this doll for Andy or what? So he goes to the thrift store and he grabs the Play Pals doll, and it's in the box and everything. He's like, where did you get this thing? And the guy at the pawn shop's like, don't ask questions, man. Come on now. You want it or not? And he's like, I want it. So he buys the Play Pals doll, brings it home for Andy. And so they activate the Play Pals doll, and it starts moving around and talking and walking around, and it's like, hello, Andy. And Andy's like all happy and shit. So each Play Pals doll comes pre-installed with its own unique original name, and this doll's name happens to be Chucky. That's right, Chucky. At least that's what it says. So the movie starts, and Andy and Chucky are just bonding, and they're having this fun time together, and they're doing all this stuff together. But as soon as they're alone, shit starts getting weird. Like, it cuts to Chucky. He starts talking to Andy. He says, Andy, my real name is Charles, and I've been sent by your mommy from heaven to play with you. So these scenes from the original movie where Chucky talks to Andy and tells him he's alive and tells him his real name is Charles and all this stuff, that we actually see in Evan Lefavor's Child's Play. We actually see those creepy scenes of Charles Lee Ray manipulating Andy, and Andy's father not being able to detect that this manipulation is going on because this Play Pals doll, it walks, it talks. And so when Andy comes to him and says, Chucky's talking to me, Andy's dad is like, yeah, of course he's talking to you. That's what those Play Pals dolls do. They talk to you. So a 6-year-old kid is going to imagine that his doll is alive. So when Andy starts telling his dad that Chucky is alive, that this doll is alive, his dad does not believe him because he thinks it's just this advanced toy, and that the kid is just using his imagination, and that is just how a kid reacts to an advanced toy like a Play Pals. So the Play Pals doll, it looks creepy to begin with, like really creepy, because it's eerily lifelike, like it's alive already, right? So it always looks like the possessed, scary Chucky type look. It's always really freaking creepy and lifelike and human. So anyway, Andy goes to school, and he's getting bullied at school. There's these bullies that are threatening to beat him up and all this shit, and he befriends this other kid, and the other kid comes over for a sleepover. So this kid is going to stay overnight with Andy, and they're going to have a sleepover, and so they're like watching movies, and this kid is like creeped out by the Play Pals doll, and at night he's got to get up to use the bathroom, and everything's dark, and the Chucky doll's just sitting there, and it's like its eyes are just staring at him, and the kid's like trying to go to the bathroom, but the whole time he's staring at that doll. And then the kid comes back, and the doll's gone, it's moved, and it's in another place, and all of a sudden the Play Pals doll comes alive and starts chasing the little kid, and dun 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 dun, and Chucky kills the little kid. So Andy's dad wakes up in the morning and finds the dead kid in his house, right? And he's freaking out. What the fuck is going on? He calls 911. Detective Norris shows up. She's questioning Andy Barkley. She's questioning Andy's dad. And they're the number one suspects because they were there in the house. Why didn't they hear the kid being killed? Like, how did they not hear this happen? Like, she's just asking them 1,000,001 questions. So right now, Andy Barkley and his dad are the prime suspects in this kid's murder. So all of a sudden, they're like devastated. They're like, holy shit, what the fuck happened? They're scared. They're really scared. And so suddenly people in Andy's life start getting killed. Like the bullies at school, Andy brings the Play Pals doll with to school. And the kids that were bullying Andy get chased down and killed by Chucky. That's right, Chucky kills kids in this movie. I know. It's taboo. Hey, Freddy was a child murderer. Why can't Chucky do it too? Right? Come on. So, anyways, all these people start getting killed off that are surrounding Andy and surrounding Andy's dad. And the evidence keeps piling up to make it implicate that perhaps it is Andy or Andy's dad that is doing the killing. Andy starts becoming convinced that it is Chucky doing the killing. He tries to convince his dad, who doesn't believe him. And he tries to convince Detective Norris, who doesn't believe them. And they take Andy away from his dad and put him in a psychiatric facility where they're questioning him and all this stuff. So Andy's dad is at home and he's got the fucking Play Pals doll. And he's like, I'm fucking sick of you. He's like, you have ruined my fucking life. And he's like, he's got the doll. And he's like, you know what, motherfucker? I am going to kill you. You know, you can't be alive without your battery, can you? You can't even fucking walk or talk or do anything without your fucking battery, can you? Well, I can take it out. And so he turns the Play Pals doll over, opens it up. Boom, there's no battery in there to begin with, and the head spins around, and he's like, hi, I'm Chucky, wanna play? And he drops the doll, and it rolls under the couch, and he's like, he doesn't know where the fuck the Chucky doll is, and he's looking around, and the Chucky doll comes alive, and he's like, ah! And so he attacks the dad, stabs him in the leg, and runs out, and he bites the dad in the arm, too. Of course, he's got to bite the dad in the arm, and then he runs out. So the dad tracks down Detective Norris and he's telling her, he's like, Chucky was alive. I swear to God, Chucky's alive. He just attacked me in our house. He's been operating without batteries this entire time. And she's like, Chucky? The doll's name is Chucky? He's like, yes. And this whole time, all these murders, Chucky has been leaving little signatures that only Charles Lee Ray would leave behind at crime scenes. He's been leaving those little signatures at these people he has been killing. And the Detective Norris, even though all the evidence implicates Andy's dad and Andy as being the potential killers, there are still these little things that only Charles Lee Ray would do that are happening at these crime scenes. And so she starts looking into Charles Lee Ray. She finds out that he's into voodoo, he's into all this shit. And she doesn't know if she believes it or not. And then all of a sudden, boom, she gets attacked in her car. Chucky's trying to strangle her. She crashes. Boom, there's a big old scuffle. The car gets flipped. So Detective Norris's car is flipped over. And Chucky is circling the car. And he's laughing. And she's shooting all her bullets out at him and missing. And then she finally hits him. Ah! He's like, you bitch! And he comes in and he just jumps on her and stabs her right in the eye. And Detective Norris dies. Chucky's like, no. Ah, that hurts. He's like, I'm turning human. I gotta get the fuck out of this body. And so Chucky starts realizing that he's turning human. He starts realizing that he's going to be trapped in this doll if he doesn't get out of this body soon. So he starts going after Andy. So they cut to the psychiatric facility and Andy is struggling. He's like, no, Chucky's alive. Chucky's alive. He's going to come kill me. And he's frantic. So they grab him and they put this shot. They inject him with this shot. And they're like, it's only going to make you a little sleepy, Andy. Don't try to fight it. Don't try to fight it. And anyway, then Chucky shows up and he kills the doctors. He escapes with Andy. Andy's still awake, but he's like dazed. He's dazed. So around the corner is this toy store, and Chucky and Andy go into the toy store. They break through the window. They go in to the Play Pals toy department. And Chucky has Andy lay down. He gets down. He starts doing the Damballa ritual. Ade dui dembella. Give me the power, I beg of you. And all of a sudden, the Chucky doll just falls back, lifeless. Little Andy sits up. So, all of a sudden, the police show up. They come into the toy store, and there's Andy. And he's looking up at them. They're like, "You're going to have to come with us, son." And then it cuts to an interrogation room. And Andy's in the interrogation room, and he starts saying that his father did all the killings, that his father admitted to him that he murdered all these people, that the night when his friend had the sleepover, it was his father that killed him, and that his father came up with this lie to say that it was a Chucky doll that did it, just to try to throw them off the scent. So then the next scene is them showing up to arrest Andy's dad. So in the end of Child's Play, Chucky succeeds. He succeeds in transferring his soul into Andy's body. And as soon as he does, he implicates Andy's dad as the killer. And Andy's dad gets blamed for all the murders and goes to prison, while Chucky gets to go free as little Andy Barkley. And thus, Chucky wins. The last scene is Andy leaving the room, and you just see the door close, and there's just a little sliver of his eye, just like the end of the first Child's Play. And then, boom, we hit that Child's Play theme, and that is Child's Play. Evan Lefavor style, Evan Lefavor's Child's Play. What do you think of them apples? Ooh-wee.